Ever since 2012, when I started blogging about my experiences traveling around the world in search of new investment ideas and more freedom, I have been fascinated, and I've been talking to you about the idea of the next big place. Because what I've seen over the course of my more than a dozen years in studying and doing this stuff, and now helping people do this stuff, is that the countries that become popular, the countries that become brand names for at least something, often become out of reach of most people. It's Singapore, South Korea. These are the kind of countries that were once chasing people to come and invest, but now they don't need to. I'm always looking for the next big thing. We've talked about Georgia. We've talked about Colombia. We've talked about so many countries like Malaysia around the world. And there's a group called the Heritage Foundation that's a think tank in the United States. They put out an annual report called the Index of Economic Freedom. I've been looking at this with my father since I was a very young child, actually, in the 1990s. And I don't agree with everything that they put in the index. I think that the index largely speaks to a lot of macroeconomic policies which don't trickle down to affect individual business owners. As an example, I'm an investor in Cambodia. I've done very well there, and yet Cambodia ranks relatively low on the Heritage Foundation Index. But there's a couple things I wanted to bring your attention to. Number one, countries like the United States are dropping, in the case of the US, to 17th this year out of all the countries in the world. Countries like Georgia and Lithuania are beating them. Countries like Denmark are beating them. But what I want to talk with you about today is 6 countries that you probably haven't thought much about, and if you have, it may have been bad, that are actually growing, and their economies are improving faster than almost any other economies in the world. So the Heritage Foundation Index ranks countries into 5 different tiers. Free, which there are only 5 countries, Singapore won this year. Then mostly free, this is where you see the United States, the up-and-comers like Georgia, Lithuania, etc. Some of the developed economies where the taxes may be high, but you can relatively function in business. Then there's moderately free. You'll see a lot of up-and-coming countries here as well, including a lot of European Union countries that just aren't that good to do business. Then you'll see mostly unfree, and then you'll see repressed. This is like the total dregs of the world. And I've chosen 6 of these countries that probably haven't been on your radar. We've talked only about a couple of them, and I want to share with you why the Heritage Foundation believes that they are rising. There's 100 total points that you can get. Generally, the top country will get like 89 or 90, I think. And so the first country on the rankings, it's actually the highest of these 6, is Armenia, ranked number 34. So they are mostly free. They gained 2.9 points, which made them one of the largest growth cases in this latest index. Why? The index cites better property rights, improvements in the judiciary. Certainly Armenia has had a problem with corruption in the past. The new administration has been working on doing that, perhaps, as I've suggested, following a Georgia model under our friend Mikhail Saakashvili, who's speaking at Nomad Capitalist Live, in getting rid of corruption. Government integrity is improved. More business freedom, easier to start a business. One thing that I was talking about with our attorneys and accountants when I was in Armenia this January was how taxes are going down. With that, the government is spending less, and so the Heritage Foundation certainly quoted that lower government spending is a benefit. Armenia is certainly not the most tax-free country in the world, but they are making it very favorable to take dividends on a tax-friendly basis. Tax rates in general are going down, and it's becoming more attractive. So the highest ranking growth performer on my list is Armenia, coming in at number 34. Next on the list, Kazakhstan, which ranked just below at number 39. They gained more than pretty much anyone else on the list entirely, gaining 4.2 points. That made them one of the top growth stories overall, and actually one of the top growth story among relatively free countries. The only ones outperforming them at all were countries that are coming up from the doldrums. Kazakhstan, better property rights, judiciary, new trade freedoms. There is a new government there that we've talked about wanting to introduce things like residence by investment programs, but they're also basically looking to diversify the economy, get out of just energy, get into new things, which is why they're looking to attract some kind of immigration. I was in Kazakhstan a couple of years ago, have a couple of friends there, have a couple lawyers there. But really the interesting thing that the Heritage Foundation mentioned was the government's goal to reduce the role of the state and to have more government efficiency. And so basically following, again, a path that a country like a Georgia or some of the Baltic states did in getting the government into shape. Next on the list is Colombia, a country that we've talked about quite a bit, a country where I own property. Number 45 puts them in the ranks of moderately free. They gained 1.9 points, so not as much of growth, but they have improved, and they're right on the edge of getting back into the mostly free category where they were before. And how are they doing that? Well, the index quotes better judicial reforms, lowering taxes. Now, the migration issues there from Venezuela have not made that easy. Certainly, what's happened in 2020 will not make that easy. But overall, Colombia is one of the more free economies in Latin America. They have been moving in the right direction. They have been open to foreign investment. There are certainly areas for improvement as someone who has spent a lot of time in Colombia. I think, just getting access to an ATM would be help. But they are making some improvements and looking to get back to mostly free status, and the index gave them some credit for that and gave them an extra 1.9 points. Much lower on the index, but still growing a respectable 3.8 points, is Belarus, which ranks 88th. Now, certainly Belarus has been in the news lately, like a lot of countries, for not the best reasons, but it has been in the news in the last couple of years for being very open to crypto investors, and they've made a lot of progress in getting people to come there and have crypto businesses. The index cites that it's easier to start a business. Certainly not as easy as it should be. The government's still a little bit skeptical, but they're making improvements. Taxes are pretty low. Much like Russia, income tax rates are in the low teens. Corporate tax rates are moderate. Monetary freedoms are improving. So, for a certain type of person, the kind of person who perhaps is into cryptocurrency, Belarus does have a residence program. They do have, pretty good tax policies for both business and investors. There's a certain type of person who might like to live there, perhaps a single person. But Belarus comes in at number 88. Certainly, not in the top ranks, but definitely one of the top performers in terms of going in the right direction. Next in line, coming at number 99, which I will add is one step ahead of Greece. So if we're comparing these places to countries that we've heard of, the basket case that is Greece, which has a golden visa program, you might want to do that, but Greece, obviously not a great economy. They came in at the big 100. One step ahead of them is the country of Madagascar. And while people would consider investing in Greece, and they do for the golden visa, have you considered investing in Madagascar? So number 99, the island country in Africa, gained 3.9 points, one of the top performers. The index cites that it was largely sentiment, it seems. The government is moving in the right direction. They're saying the right things. They want to maintain the pretty solid GDP growth they've had by reforming laws and by doing more things to attracting investment. So that is number 99, Madagascar. Number 114, a country that we have talked about very briefly before, but one that I think really sums up my thoughts on why talking about these countries is important. It's the countries of Uzbekistan. Now, is Uzbekistan ready for prime time now? Not necessarily. But neither was Georgia. And if you go back even further, neither was Singapore when it was the best time to invest. And so we've talked about Uzbekistan in the sense of they have kind of borrowed from Georgia's playbook in terms of reforming their banking laws. TBC Bank, the largest bank in Georgia, now has a presence in Uzbekistan as a result of that. And so that was one of the things, not TBC particularly, but the banking reforms that was mentioned in the index. Basically, Uzbekistan did really well on a lot of different metrics. GDP growth had been surging. Liberal policies that the government is taking or putting into effect are taking some roots. Real estate ownership has been opened up. There are still some restrictions on that in that you need to buy certain types of properties, i.e. newer, and there needs to be a certain threshold. The Uzbek currency has not done that well, so it is now cheaper to buy into real estate in Uzbekistan, but they have been opening up to foreigners. They're getting the state out of industry, again, reforming banking, generally trying to attract investment. And so, here's what I think about these countries. I'm not telling you, and I want to make it clear, I'm not telling anyone to rush and get on a plane and fly to Madagascar. What I'm saying is, you should be aware, number one, that some of these countries rank better than the European countries that you know and might feel comfortable living in. Number two, this index is not the be-all, end-all. Again, I feel comfortable investing in certain countries, and meanwhile, the US or the UK, which rank relatively well, I wouldn't invest in, because as a small investor or a small entrepreneur, to me, it's just too much hassle. I'd rather run a company that comes with less paperwork, with less, fear of, overzealous tax enforcement, where I can pay less tax or no tax to begin with, right? So I think for the average, small investor, small entrepreneur, 7 or 8 figure, 9-figure business owner, these rankings do need to be adjusted to your own situation. But why Uzbekistan in particular speaks to why these rankings are important is it's what is coming up next, right? If you want to get a bank account in Singapore, you have some of the strongest banks in the world, you better have a couple $100,000. Most of the other countries that offer such strong banks that used to be, backwaters, you can't even get in, right? If you want to immigrate to Singapore, forget it. It's millions of dollars, or you better start a pretty good business and pay yourself a salary and commit to living there, right? And so I think that being aware of which countries are up and coming and potentially placing call options, it could be opening a bank account, could be buying a piece of property, could be starting a business or expanding your existing business there. Our friend Reed at InvestAsian has a property fund in Cambodia, taking advantage of what he and I believe is a great opportunity there. Perhaps there is some kind of similar opportunity where you're going to go and be a pioneer in one of these markets, or invest in someone else who is a pioneer. Perhaps there's an opportunity to become a resident or easily get a citizenship in some of these countries, or be ready to reach citizenship once dual citizenship laws are liberalized, which is generally something that happens when economies become more free. So being aware of countries that are up and coming does not mean you rush there to put all of your money in that country. It does not mean it's the best place to incorporate or the best place to live. It simply means that it's worth taking a look at. I have personal experience in Armenia and Colombia. I've done some stuff with Kazakhstan and with Belarus and a little bit with Uzbekistan. Other than being on a flight whose next stop was Madagascar, I can't say I have much experience there. But I've seen in some of these countries where buying a piece of property in Yerevan has worked very well for some people, and the government did not take their property. Starting a business there is increasingly easy and low tax. Is it easy to start a U.S. LLC if you're an American? Sure. It's also easy for them to take 40% of your money. And so there's a trade-off in that case. And so I think being aware of these up-and-coming economies and following indices like the Heritage Foundation is important to study what could be the next big thing. Some countries will falter and won't make it. Some will become niche players. Maybe one becomes some version of a Singapore eventually. But this is your opportunity to see which countries at least are moving in the right direction. How can Nomad Capitalist help you? 4 ways. Number 1, subscribe to our channel and click the notification bell to make sure you get our new video every day. Number 2, get a copy of Nomad Capitalist, the book. You'll learn a lot of my personal experiences over a dozen years of studying this stuff, as well as exactly some of the strategies that you can use to build your Nomad Capitalist plan. Number 3, if you're not sure where to start, but you want to come and learn from my team and I, you want to come and mingle with like-minded people, learn more about our live conference, Nomad Capitalist Live. It's coming up soon. And number 4, if you want some help right now because you've got a burning issue, you need something solved, you want to lower your taxes, get a second passport, or build the Nomad Capitalist lifestyle of your dreams, go to nomadcapitalist.com and click on Become a Client.